sharing your passion starts with taking that first step. Take Will, for example. His first step was taking free TV classes at CCX Create. He's learning production skills and now has access to cutting-edge equipment. He's working on local music productions, meeting new people, and gaining the experience needed to produce his own show. Best of all, he's sharing his passion for music with others in the community. Share your passion. Visit ccxmedia.org.
Hello and welcome to BookBeat. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny and I will be your host today. BookBeat is about all things literary, and our guests today are Taya Rozman Clark and Zaynab Abdi of Green Card Voices. And ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
What we'd like to do is talk about Green Card Voices and also talk to you, Zaynab, about your experiences as a part of Green Card Voices. So let's start with Taya. Please talk about Green Card Voices, its organization, and its mission. How did it get started?
It got started in 2013. A group of us came together and we were very much inspired by a book called Green Card Stories that was published by immigration lawyer here, Laura Danielson. She, over the course of her life, worked with many immigrants and was inspired by so many stories. She would always say, oh, if people knew, the type of stories I get to hear, they would be so inspired and they would see the contribution that immigrants make in this country. So we really knew storytelling is such a powerful tool to create a better understanding between immigrants and non-immigrants. And at the time, we could already sense that, have a feeling that while, with every new wave of immigration, the first generation always seems to have a hard time when it comes to stereotypes and backlash and whatnot. But we felt this one in particular, this generation, this latest wave, was having even harder time, especially because coming from different countries, that the receiving community, different cultures, different religions, races, there's a lot of communities that seem to experience change that happened rapidly, and there was just not enough programs or resources or tools out there to really bring these newcomers and the receiving communities together as one community. So also at the time I was just completing my PhD in oral history and digital humanities was on a rise. So we knew that with the relative low cost, we can record stories and have them be accessible free of charge to a wide audience through online platforms. We also knew we wanted to do things differently. We did not want, like it was done, mostly, where other people told stories of immigrants and refugees. We wanted the stories to be shared by immigrants and refugees themselves. And we wanted the stories to be approved and the whole process to be done very, very immigrant refugee centered, so that people, once they share their stories, walk away empowered, inspired, knowing their story is important, knowing that everyone has a story, that we all play a role, and that we all matter. So that's how.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And so we're looking at getting to as wide an audience as possible. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal. And Zaynab, would you talk about your involvement in Green Card Voices and your experiences before you came to Minnesota?
I came from Yemen, so I grew up there, and I arrived to Minnesota before 2 years and a half. And I lived there with my grandma, and I grew up there. I had an amazing life when I was in Yemen, in a small city with a lot of people from different places, different countries, and also from different religion. And it was amazing to see a community in the neighborhood where I lived. So in 2010, my grandma, she died, and me and my sister, we were there with some relative, and it was hard for us to continue our life without my grandma because I didn't grow up with my mom or my dad, and it was hard to lose the person that we consider as a parent. And in 2012, the war in Yemen started, where the Arab Spring, some country in the Middle East, they were like trying to fight for freedom and for better life, and to fight the corruption in the government. So Yemen was one of the countries that started the revolution against the government, and it was just crazy to see that a peaceful like protest end up being a war, and the government just shoot anyone there, and there is a random shooting in the neighborhood, and it started to be horrible than just a simple revolution or peaceful protest. So my experience there was horrible from that time, and I was like thinking, oh, am I gonna die there? And I didn't want to leave. I was like, where I'm gonna live? I don't know other people in other countries. So when the war started to be worse and our neighborhood started to be attacked by a lot of like people from the government and also from other like people that they just have the guns and shoot anyone randomly or come to your house and try to steal things from you. It was unsafe for me and my sister to stay there. So we decided to move and flee from Yemen to Egypt, and we stayed there for 2 years, and my mom, she started to do the process for us to arrive to United States. My mom, she was in the United States more than 18 years right now, and she was able to send us a visa. So when I was in Egypt, another revolution started in Egypt, and I was like, oh my God, am I not gonna get out from this life of like a war, from a war to another war? So it was a hard experience for me to experience again the war, and I was thinking how we can get out from here in a peaceful, and I don't want to die in another country. So I got sick and I had TB while the war was going on and all this, and that makes it worse as well. And my situation that time was very difficult, and I had to take a lot of medicine, and that's what slows my process to come to United States. So I had to finish my medicine in order to come to United States. In 2014, during December, I arrived here and they accept my visa and all this thing, but they said no to my sister, and my sister has to stay in Egypt by herself. And this was hard for me to leave my sister that I grew up with her. She's the only one I knew after my grandma, she died. So I came to United States and I renewed with my family, my mom and my 2 sisters that they born here. It was hard to leave my sister behind, and she was like, I'm not gonna stay in Egypt. I already fled Yemen because of war, and I don't want to stay in Egypt, and there is a lot of conflict going on there. So she decided to go to Europe through the immigration like boat, where there is a boat where people go and flee from a country to Europe through the ocean. My sister, she was like, oh, they took 2,000 from us, it's gonna be safe, it's gonna be a big ship and all this thing, but it wasn't. It was like small fishing boat that has more than 100 people, and everyone like squished together.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, it was so difficult, and she didn't tell me that this happened to her, because when she went there, she was like shocked that this is what they're gonna take to travel. So I didn't hear from her a month and a half, and I was like, did she die? Is there something horrible happen? And that time there was a lot of news of like Syrian refugees dying in the sea, and like they can't make it to Europe, and like they are in the Europe lands, they're lying there, or like laying there dying, or they couldn't make it to the end. So I was so scared if something happened to her, and I had no idea what's going on with her. So after 1 month and a half, and I started my high school, she told me, hey, I arrived to Italy and I'm gonna get out from there because there is not a lot of help for refugees. So she went to Holland, and from there she stayed in campus and refugee camp, And when she turned 18, they told her, now you have to be independent and work to help yourself and try to find a job. And in Holland, it was hard to find a job there, so she went from there to Belgium. And she stayed with other refugee girls that they were with her in the camps, and they all shared the same responsibility of the rent and food and all this thing. So when I came to United States and I started the school, it was hard for me because I stopped going to school 2 years when I was in Egypt. I just was sick, sitting in the house, thinking about the whole horrible life that I had been through. I came to United States and I went to Wollaston International High School, where it's all for refugees, immigrants, undocumented students, and it's international high school. Like, we don't have a chance to sit with the American-born child. So my experience was amazing because I feel like nobody will laugh at my English, because at that time I was learning the language and I have accent and sometimes I spell wrong words and all this thing. So it was amazing to see a community there. And I achieved as a student, and I did a lot of things, being the president of student council and starting the first soccer team of the girls soccer team and being the captain.
Fabulous.
And I was so excited that we have a soccer team, and I was like, hey, let's do it. And the funny story I always tell, that we keep losing all the games because everyone was there. That's the first time trying to kick a ball, and we love it. We love the experience of failing, because from there we learned how to play soccer, and we win the last game. Yep, at least we win one game.
Fabulous.
And that was amazing, that inspired us to play soccer and continue. And I continued from there even when I graduated playing soccer. So I graduated from high school with 4.0. And before my graduation, I met Tia. And she came to our school and she was like, hey, we are doing Green Card Voices, and it's an organization, we record videos.
Yeah.
And I was like, record stories? It was hard for me and for many students there to tell their stories, because some of us, we just want to forget what happened to us. We don't want to remember all that pain. And some of us is scared of their immigration status, and they don't want to say it in case if like something will happen to them. Are they gonna get deportation? Are they gonna go back to their country? So there was a lot of fear, but at the end, like, we decided to tell our story, because untold story is gonna be misrepresented story. So we don't want people and media represent our story in the like wrong way, where that's not our story. So it was the best way to tell our story, and from there it impacts communities to understand who are the immigrants or refugees, who we are, why we came here. We didn't came to take over jobs, or we didn't came to do violent things. We fled from a violent action, and we fled from a war. We all just needed a new community, people accepting us, welcoming us. And the other thing that most of people don't know about immigrants and refugees, we all wanted to go back, but there is no chance to go back and have a peaceful in our country. So we have to be educated in order to be the leaders who are gonna go and rebuild their countries. And that's what I'm doing now, and I work with the Green Card Voices as an immigrants and refugees ambassador, and this gave me a lot of power for being the speaker on behalf of the refugees and immigrants, and telling their story, advocating for them, telling what we do, what we want to do, and what we expect from community to understand about us. I grew up in Yemen, in Aden. I grew up with my father's family. We were a big family, like we were 11 members in the same house. I had a beautiful life there and a simple life. Our neighborhood, it was the best neighborhood, and I love my life there. I wish I go back. I came to United States because my mom, she was here 16 years. She had the chance to come to United States by lottery. It was by like visa. She came here and she couldn't take us because it was like she should be a single to come here. After 16 years, we decided to come here, me and my sister. My grandmom, she died in 2010. When she died, I used to live there alone, so I decided to move to United States Before I decided to move to United States, the revolution at Yemen happened against the president. Then there were a lot of problems. So I decided to move to Egypt. I moved in 2012. I stayed there 2 years. When I got the visa, I moved from Egypt directly to Minnesota. When I came here, it was like different life than I used to see in my country or in Egypt too. I was like seeing people, they were different than our people. It was cold, it was in winter, then I didn't get used to cold weather. After 2 days, I attended the school, and my mom, she showed me the direction from my house to school, and she let me go by myself. It was like my best thing that I did ever. I'm going in the street in different country I have never been. I was looking at new people. They were looking at the way I was dressed. I didn't see my mom for 16 years, so it was like different. My culture and my mom's culture gets different, so I have to get used about American culture and my mom's culture because she's from Somalia and I grew up in Yemen. After that, sometimes I get like, I was sad. I wanted to come back to my country because I don't like people here. They were like they don't like me, or they don't like to talk to anyone. I was smiling on them, trying to open the conversation, but they were cutting the conversation. So after 2 months, I decided to continue and make my own goal. I went to internship, step-up internship. I said I want to try to be a lawyer. I started to make the internship for law at the University of Minnesota. I did my best. I was like so confused because my English was so bad and I still new in the country. But when I did my best, we were third student and I get the third top. It was my best thing ever. I was like, whatever in my language or I'm immigrant, I can do it. So in future, I want to be a lawyer. I would like to grow up here, and I finished my high school and I finished my college too, and to come back to my country too, to build my future there.
Well, that's fabulous. The idea that you've put yourself out there to advocate for other refugees, and your story sounds harrowing. Is your sister okay?
Yeah, my sister now, she's in Belgium. She's okay. Even though my mom, she's trying to do her process to come to United States, and she was like, no, I see the news. I think I don't want to be there. And she's kind of feeling if she came to United States, she don't want to go over any act of racism or people don't accepting her or people don't liking her because she's a Muslim and all this thing. She was like, I'm gonna be in Belgium, and my mom, she's still being, I wanna see you, you have to come here. I have never seen you for a long time. So I don't know if she could make it to here, and also with the green card ban or the Muslim ban that the executive order that was ordered last year basically.
Yes.
And that was horrible for all of us. So I have no idea if she could make it here, but I wish that she is in a peaceful place, living in a nice place with a good community.
And I'm glad she's safe. That's what's important, is
Exactly.
that she's in a safe place. How are the students chosen for Green Card Voices, Taya?
So Green Card Voices records stories of all the immigrants and refugees. However, to date we've recorded 300 stories of people coming from over 100 countries. But about 2.5 years ago, we had an opportunity to record 30 stories of Wellstone International High School. And after we recorded, it was just so amazing that a dear friend, Abdi from Wising, said, that's a book. So that's how we started doing books. But when we partnered with the Wellstone High School, the goal was always the same. The goal is always to find as different types of stories as possible. So, different countries of origin, different types of stories. So people that came here at the age of 5, 15, 50, different occupations, different immigration statuses, because we feel that there's always the danger of a single story that, and by fighting that, the more diversity and the more different types of stories of immigrants and refugees we can share, the more we can also explain how stereotypes or generalizations just don't work. There's 196 countries in this world, so people moving to United States come from 195 countries. And even before we did the youth stories, we've recorded stories of people that are on O1 visa, extraordinary talent and achievement, or special visa that's doctors, or there's just so many different pathways how people come here, and we really wanted to highlight that.
And to show.
So, yeah, and with the books that we're now publishing, they were chosen with the help of the teachers that we were working, just really making sure, okay, how can we have the most countries represented, the most different types of stories. Our Fargo book, for example, has 22 countries represented. Our Minneapolis one has 13 countries represented, simply because demographics, and that's why we ended up doing 2 books. Demographics of immigrant and refugee population in Minneapolis and St. Paul is very different.
That's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is what kind of differences did you see between Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Fargo?
Yes, so so even if you look at the books, it reflects also the actual demographics. When it comes to immigrant population, the largest population comes from Asia for St. Paul, but for Minneapolis, it's from mostly East Africa, and then people from Latin America are sort of equally represented in both St. Paul and Minneapolis, and then all the rest after that. So that's why we felt it's important we do 2 books, because they each have 13 countries of origin, but only a few overlap. So
so you've got 26 countries represented in those first 2 books.
Exactly, yeah, almost 20, because a few overlap. But but for Fargo, it's also very interesting. Because different regions take in different refugees, or they're just different migration pathways. So there's a lot of countries of origin in Fargo book that are not in Minneapolis or St. Paul. So the Bhutanese refugees, for example, that have been in refugee camps in Nepal are represented there, or South Sudanese, and a few others. So yeah, between the 3 books, the youth books, there's I believe 45 countries.
Oh, that's amazing. One of the things that struck me as you were speaking, that having this wide variety of countries represented, and the different stories, it shows people how diverse the stories are and how much like the general population they are. That there isn't one story.
Exactly.
And you can find somebody to identify with. And that was really important. And Zaynab, I'd like to take a minute now to talk about what you've been doing since high school and how you're involved in Green Card Voices, a little bit more than what you said before.
Now I go to St. Catherine University, and I'm sophomore. So I am an advocate, so I work with the Green Card Voices, and I do a lot of speaking events. And one of the places I spoke was at the UN, and I spoke at the Good Summit 2030, and also I spoke in other states, in Chicago with the Justice Conference, and another state in New York and in DC, and also I'm more involved in Minnesota and other local places, the Human Rights, Edina, and other cities in Minnesota. So I mostly speak and advocate for the issue of the immigrants and refugees, and I'm so passionate about it because I'm studying political science and international relations, and that's my major, and I want to make change and see change in country and also in the global area where wars being stopped, and we don't want war, and how this impacts the refugees and immigrants, and what we can do from here to move forward and change. So, and also I play soccer, and I used to play with Minnesota. It's street soccer, and now I stopped because I couldn't make it to the World Cup. They have been selecting me, but I couldn't travel because of my green card status, and this kind of broke my dreams. And it's hard when you see you're passionate about something, but a small ID card stops you from achieving your dreams. So I work with green card a lot, with speaking and doing book reading and engagement with the community, and yeah.
I read in your resume that you're thinking about going to law school. Is that correct?
Yep, I want to go to law school when I finish my 4 years college. I know it's going to be a little bit hard for me, but I believe that I can achieve a lot, and I have a big dream of going to the best law school, which is Harvard. And I will never give up, because I want to show the other refugees that it doesn't mean that you are a refugee, you are less than the other people. We can have the same dreams, the same passion, and all this thing, and we can do any single thing that other people that they born here, that they do it. And I don't want to see an English being the thing that stopped them from experience this thing and achieving and all this stuff. So I'm trying to go to law school, and how can I use the law to impact my country, and also to help the refugees around the world to come back to their country and rebuild their countries as well. And I feel that right now we live in a world where politician is controlling, but law is the powerful that could stop the war from spreading around the world.
One thing you said previously, let's see if I can go back to it. You mentioned about people not wanting to take, immigrants not wanting to take white Americans' jobs. And that they were interested in going back to their countries. If you had the opportunity, would you go back to Yemen?
Yes, I always think about Yemen every single time in my life. I'm in the social media, I see people posting about what's going on in the country and all this thing, and I feel painful to see that people are suffering there, and I'm kind of far away from them. I feel sometimes guilty of I fled from my country and I left everyone behind, but I always tell them that I'm part of you. It doesn't mean that I left my country. I never belonged to there, and I wanted to go back for sure when I finish my law school. I don't have any interest of hey, I will be American forever. I don't know what Yemen is. I don't care about Yemen. No, that's not my intention. And also for other refugees, because I have been talking to many refugees that said, oh, when I grow up, I will do this, and I will go back to Mexico, and I will do all these jobs there. When I grow up, I will go back to China, and I will build my neighborhood that was destroyed. So all these dreams that every single one of us having it's not because we don't like this place, but everyone called the place where they belong home. If there is a people that they feel this is home, they will never care where I came from, why I came from there. Some of them, they just arrive in the age of 2 years or 3 years, even if they didn't born here. And they feel this is home, I'm not gonna go anywhere, this is where I grew up. And for some that they feel a disconnection with home that's far away from here, they still want to go back, they still want to do something for their community. And that's why I feel that I want to go back and do something for my community. If we all gonna flee and leave our country, then we will never have a state, and it's gonna just be disappear with the time, because everyone not going back.
Well, that's important to say, because you get a different feeling when you're working towards something, I think. And what I hear you saying is that you're working toward the opportunity to go back and make a difference in Yemen. And I applaud you for that, and I hope that you are able to do that.
Thank you.
And Taya, let's go back to you for a minute. You mentioned that there's some other Green Card Voices books in store, something different from the Youth Voices. Would you like to talk about that, please?
Yes. So our intention first was to publish Green Card Youth Voices and then do many more series like Green Card Artist Voices, Green Card Entrepreneur Voices, Green Card. I mean, there's just a list that was 30 different series long. And but when we published the Green Card Youth Voices first, the reaction was so overwhelmingly positive. In fact, we did a crowdfunding campaign and raised $16,000 in 20 days. That we were like, wow. And you know, we realized that it was the teachers buying the books and really people that felt it's such a useful tool to have a discussion around immigration. So soon after the Minneapolis, our first came out, we wanted to continue maybe doing another series, but the demand was so high to do others that we, we're sort of caught up with that, and we're now going back to our original plan. So in May of 2018, we're going to publish our second series, which is called Green Card Entrepreneur Voices. We've already recorded 8 stories in St. Cloud, the Twin Cities, and Stillwater. Are very excited about that. So we're sort of going back to more recording, older adult immigrant voices. Yeah, and it's also very timely. I think right now the discussion around immigration is very centered around what immigrants are taking, and we really want to show that immigrants, especially entrepreneurs, are contributing in so many ways, because immigrants are actually twice as more likely to start a business than a person that was born in the US. And they contribute in so many ways in terms of taxes and job generation, and also really, really original and unique ideas. So really, we're really excited about this new series. What's going to be different is also that instead of doing stories in urban environments, we're going Minnesota-wide. And we really think it's important because all the statistics say that in urban environments, immigrants and refugees are quite accepted because that's where a lot of them also live. But further you go out, to smaller towns or even rural areas, they're not exposed to immigrants and refugees as much, and there seems to be just more important we go to those areas as well. So we're very excited, and the book launch is going to be in May of 2018.
Well, that's very exciting. Could you talk a little bit about the videos that that accompany these books? Not accompany, they aren't a part of the book, but they are part of your website. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, actually, the videos are a part of the book as well.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
No, it's okay. So yeah, every chapter, every story has a portrait, and then a first-person essay, and a link to the video.
Oh, perfect.
So we really want people to interact with the story in many, many ways. So yeah, we record stories. I've had several interviews, and I always was thinking, I love sharing the stories, or my immigrant story, because I feel that people understand immigrants better that way. It's a good learning opportunity. People empathize. They hear a story. They don't just hear the numbers. But looking back, I always thought, okay, what would have to happen for me to be really happy? So we incorporate a lot of that. So we send people 6 open-ended questions a month in advance. They have a chance to prepare with the youth books, especially. They have a chance to prepare with teachers. They have a chance to write things out. They have a chance to interview each other. So there's a lot of prep, because I truly believe that in order for a person to genuinely and confidently share their own story, there has to be a very lead time and prep. And then when we record the story, it's open-ended questions. We don't throw in any other questions, but it's only those questions because we want people to be, like I said, prepared and don't be like not be surprised, you know. And then in the editing process of the video and writing, they have a full control. So they're the ones that approve the final. They first look at the draft. They give us feedback. It's a very, very close collaboration. But at the end, it's a 5-minute edited version with a lot of personal photos, and it's a glimpse where they get to tell the story. And it's a slow process. That's why, you know, we've done 300 in 4 years, but we really believe that it's important that every story we record is a story that immigrant and refugee that shared that story is happy with, that they walk away empowered, that they're like, yeah, that is my story. So that's how we do the recordings, and they're all available on our website, and they're used widely, and we share them on social media and so forth.
That's wonderful. Zaynab, could you talk a little bit about what that experience was like, getting those 6 questions and going through that process with the staff of Green Card Voices?
Yeah, when I record my story, I was like almost 6 months in the United States, and I was like kind of like talking to Tia, and I was like, can we practice before we do this? And I was like asking her like what this question means, what do you mean by this, and all this thing. And sometimes when I watch my videos right now, I was like, oops, now I know better English, better than before. And it was amazing for me, and just trying to record my voice and look at my video and all this thing. It was an amazing experience, and also like the book reading and all this thing was more like powerful for me, of like, hey, I can speak in front of everyone. And I was telling Tia that my first public speaking was on the Green Card Gala, and that was my first speaking and also professional speaking. And from there I spoke at the high school as a valedictorian graduate, and also I spoke at many places. But my first experience was the best, because from there I learned that I have a strong voice. I could be a speaker. I'm a public speaker. I have this amazing voice, this amazing story that I can share. So it impacted my life a lot.
Oh, that's fabulous. Tia, would you mind taking a few minutes and talk about your immigrant experience?
Sure, I can share that too. So I was born in Yugoslavia, and I was 15 when the war started. When I was 20, I was asked I was working a lot in the refugee camps in Ljubljana, where I was born, and someone literally handed me a form and said, we're from the Open Society Institute, we see you here working, why don't you fill out this form? We're going to give out 4 scholarships for the US. I did not think much of it, frankly. I was working there, I was studying, I was in my first year of university. That was in '96, so it was like even before the internet and all that. So I filled it out. I ended up having an interview with someone that came in from New York. So Open Society Institute or Foundation, it's George Soros founded it, and through a series of interviews and so forth, they chose me as one of 4 people in Slovenia with the leadership potential, and I was sent to study to United States for a year to University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. So I did my 3rd year of university there, and yeah, I was able to experience the United States for the first time that way, living in an all-female dorm, you know, in an area where just about every student went home on Thursday night and came back on Monday morning. There was in a school, there was only 100 international students. So yeah, it was a very interesting glimpse of Midwest. And yeah, I went back, but while I was in Eau Claire, I met a fellow student, and we were sort of dating, and then we were writing letters, and then he came to visit, then he moved. Anyway, 4 years later, we got married in Slovenia and had a passion to go and do graduate school, perhaps in the States. Nathan, my husband, really wanted to go back to the States for graduate school. And he even said, I think you should also do graduate school. Although in my country, if you graduate from a undergraduate degree, people were like already applauding you, were like, you're great. So I guess I was like, okay, if you think that's good, and maybe having a degree from the US would be good too. So yeah, and then I was accepted to go to graduate school on a full scholarship, and I've studied at New York University.
Oh.
So yeah, it was a great experience, and yeah, then after we got married, we again felt I was so homesick, and New York was great, but
it's difficult.
It's also very expensive, and it's not a really good place to raise a family. So in 2006, we moved back to Slovenia, and my both daughters were born there, and yeah, it was this August exactly 5 years since I moved to Minneapolis. I'm one of those immigrants that goes back and forth. Although I said I'm done now, although every 5 years I just get so homesick. I just it's hard to constantly be in a land that is where you're a foreigner. You don't speak a language that is yours. I have now my parents still live there. My sister is now married. I have a nephew. It's very hard to be here. So yeah, but we've also, my husband and I felt it was important to come back in the States and give opportunity to our daughters to maybe have a better education. So they're 4th and 2nd grade now, and for me, one of the people say, "Oh my gosh, you're so passionate about my work, about this work," and it's because it also gives purpose to my life here. Mm-hmm. Because I'm an immigrant, and I feel that okay, if I do this type of work, at least I contribute to people better understanding my accent, but also fellow immigrants and refugees. Because I mean, there's just so many stories. The list just goes on and on and on. But I can just tell you, like my daughter just started school 2 weeks ago, and I didn't understand what a homeroom teacher is. It's like, and I had to look it up. I had to talk to people. I felt so silly. But it's things like that.
Silly. It's not silly.
Yeah, because I never went to school here, so I know my daughters are constantly explaining me things which I think are very basic. So I don't know.
But that's what you have children for, is to explain things.
I know, and they even correct my accent. So yeah.
Well, and what they're probably doing is teaching you all about the internet and all the technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes somebody that's 6 to show you what's going on. At least that's what I need. We're getting toward the end of our time. Mm-hmm. Is there anything either of you would like to add to our conversation that we didn't cover? Let's start with you, Zaynab.
Yeah, like the most important thing that I want to add is an advice for the community, especially where we live in a hard time right now, where there's a lot of stories going on, like hard things. And what I want to advise the community is go out, meet a new person, meet someone from like another country that speaks different than your language, someone that has different religion than you, and just sit with them, eat food with them, eat dinner with them, and try to understand them and learn from their story, learn from why they are here, what they want, and let them feel that they are the dear neighbor that God told us to take care of each other, and how we can be one community. And it doesn't matter where we come from, what language we speak, what's our religion, because at the end we're all human and we have to share this love together. So that's my advice for the community.
Brava, that is wonderful. How about you, Taya? What would you like to end our...
The same. And, if people are, insecure, I feel, in Minnesota especially, people sometimes are like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake, or, they don't want to get uncomfortable, so they just don't engage necessarily, I would tell the, be brave. And also, like, if you want to just familiarize yourself with some stories, watch our videos, read our books, and, you will then know enough to be able to go from not knowing anything to being more familiar, and then engage, go from that comfort zone, which, by exposing yourself to the digital and written historians, you will then go into the learning zone, but then really practice intentional diversity. Just really intentionally reach out to people that are different than you. And this is how empathy is built, this is how our common community is built, a common humanity is built. Stories are 22 times more powerful than facts alone, and we have to go beyond facts. Immigration is a very, very complex subject field. There's over 40 million of us that were not born in this country, living in the United States. So many of us really want to contribute and be really great neighbors. And so what Green Card Voices is all about is trying to put a human face to the immigration debate and really trying to introduce the immigrants and refugees to their new neighbors. So I would encourage people to just get to know us.
Well, you both are certainly making it possible for individuals to engage, and I commend both of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at BookBeat, a show about all things literary. Our guests have been Zaynab Abdi and Taya Rozman Clark, both of Green Card Voices. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.
I was born in San Salvador, it's the city of El Salvador. And my life has been really tough in the way that, I have been facing so many challenges, and with my family, with society, with people around me. Since I was 4 years old, I started getting bullied because of my sexual orientation. And, in my house, there always have been problems with my dad and my mom, so they used to get into fights. They used to transfer me to another school because, things get different. Sometimes they get like more expensive, so they wanted to find another school more cheaper for me. So it was really hard for me to find friends, and I used to get bullied every single day. I got to the point when I was 13 years old that I tried to commit suicide. It was really hard for me because my family, I didn't have the support from them. And people just like were throwing hate on you. I was talking to my mom that I needed help because I was like getting crazy when those thoughts about thinking about, I want to die, I don't want to be here anymore. The things changed later on, and we started to have a better relationship with my parents. So my mom and my dad started to understand that, this is who I am, and they cannot do anything to change it. And by having their support, it makes me stronger. It was really tough at the beginning, but things got better. My grandma sponsored my dad, but when the President Barack Obama won the presidency, there was a lot that people that were under 21 were able to come with their parents. That's how my dad and I came here. It was really hard for me because I didn't have a good relationship with my dad, because we didn't used to see each other like really often. So he was kind of a stranger for me. At the beginning it was like, I don't know what to do because I don't know my dad really well. And I was missing my mom so much, and I remember when I came here, I was like, this world is so different than my country. It's been hard for me to understand another language, and when people talk to you, sometimes you get lost. I remember that I was like looking around and everything was so different, and I was like, where am I? And I was, always wondering how life will be here, but I knew that it will be better than in El Salvador because here is less homophobia and transphobia, people from the LGBT community get to live in a better life here than in El Salvador. I know Minneapolis really well. You know, I feel good living here. I feel really safe that I don't even want to go back to my country, because I know if I go back there, something can happen to me, because there has been a lot of problems with homosexuals and transsexuals that they get killed. I would like to have my mom here in the future, and I also want to be a psychologist and a cosmetologist, because those are the things that I really love to do. Because I think, you know, psychologists, when you are talking to a psychologist, if you have a problem, they can help you to solve that problem, you know, by talking. And as a cosmetologist can help you to look better, and if you look better, you will feel good.
I don't have many memories about my life in Haiti because I was very younger, and the only thing I can say, it was very amazing to live in my home country, with my mom, my grandmother, my two sisters, and my uncles. I moved to the Dominican Republic in 2010 after the earthquake in my country. And Dominican Republic is very hard for me at the beginning, because I have to learn another language. Spanish is very hard. It was very hard for me, but I was in the school and learning more about this language, and I have many friends in Dominican Republic. I think it's my second home. I think I was in school, and when I come home, and my mom say, "We got a visa to go to the United States," I just say, "Really? When we gonna go?" She told me after 1 month we going to United States. And I just say, "Mom, I don't wanna go." She told me, "But why? And I have many friends here." She told me, "But you can make other friends." I say, "Yes, but it's difficult for me to learn other language more than Spanish." She told me, you're intelligent, you can do that. But to leave my grandmother, because she was another mother for me. When mom not home, she care about me, and she cried this day when I'm going to the airport, saying, "Don't leave me." I just crying too, but we have to do that. It was very cold when I'm coming to the United States, and I say, "Mom, what are we doing in this country? It's very cold." And she told me, "You gotta put some coat and something." She said, "Mom, I don't want to live here." She told me, "But where are we going? Another country. It's too cold here." She told me, "Now we have to live there, and maybe after 2 or 3 years we can move." I said, "All right." And the first time I go to downtown, I see many buildings. I say, "Wow, it's an amazing country. It's an amazing city." And she told me, "Yeah, you see? It's a good country. You can learn more about this country." I said, "All right, I'll try it." In my life now, I think it's good, because I have my sister, my mother, and my stepfather was a father for me, and they care about me and what I'm doing. Sometimes I just go alone in my bedroom and just thinking about my grandmother. Sometimes she called me and asked me how I'm feeling, and I said, I miss you very much. I miss you, but we have to live there and try to give up. Yeah, never give up. First, I need to finish my high school, and one of my biggest dreams is go to the army, to serve the army, to have a better future. And go get my grandmother and come here with her.
Volunteering is more than just a word. It's a window to opportunities. Take Mark, for example. By taking free TV classes at CCX Create, Mark is helping bring entertainment and information to his community, along with building a foundation of skills that will take him one step closer to his dreams. Share your passion. Visit ccxmedia.org.